Sure. Eric, E-R-I-C, Damian, D-A-M-I-A-N, Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y.
All right, now I'm just going to start off with the first question. And as an urban planner, do you consider safety prior to planning or in the process of creating your project or your model?
You need to consider safety from the beginning. I mean, it has to be built in. But safety gets considered in a lot of different ways. When traffic engineers lay out streets, they're primarily concerned with automobile safety. And something that's very safe for automobiles is not always ideal for pedestrians. So one of the things that we do, I do consulting work with local governments, and one of the things that we do is we write regulations, and we've been writing regulations that require that people who are developing things like shopping centers actually have a pedestrian circulation plan for the property so that they think all of this through. Because normally if you go look at the plans for something like a Walmart or a shopping center or something, they show how all the cars are going to move and where the cars park, and then the pedestrians just sort of, there are sidewalks along the building, but that doesn't really answer how the pedestrians will get where they need to be. So we like to see that planned in from the beginning.
So then you can take in consideration the pedestrian walkways
and how they interact. Yeah, I was in you probably don't want to hear this, but I was in a hearing in Kansas once. This was many years ago, but a Walmart or a Sam's Club had applied to expand their store, and they just wanted to add on to one end of it, and they were going to add the parking and there was no problem. Well, the Plan Commission would not approve them because I think there were 7 members on the Plan Commission, and 2 or 3 of them had had their carts hit by cars as they came out of Walmart. Another one knew somebody who had been injured being hit by a car coming out of Walmart. I mean, 5 of the 7 people had direct evidence, and they said, we're only going to approve this if you fix the entry and make it safe for pedestrians.
Wow, that's crazy
Yeah.
to even think about that. People don't even
Yeah.
consider the people that are shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, they're just picturing them in their cars while they're outside of their cars.
Well, and if you think about the typical Walmart or Lowe's, they have those doors that open right onto the main traffic way. They haven't planned for that. And, if all the drivers are really careful, it works out fine. But they haven't really thought their way through that.
Wow, that's a great point. I never thought about how they even exit that too. And also, what ways do you ensure pedestrian safety? You just said that it's ironic how the major exit or entrance is with the big intersection and crossway, but do you have any other new tactics that students have been coming up with or you came up with?
It's mostly thinking about how pedestrians are going to move and where they need to move. One of the problems with doing it with students is that students don't always use their heads, and particularly when they're walking and things like that. And when we're planning, we have to hope that people will use their heads, and I think college students are probably the worst possible environment for that. But you want to make sure, you want pedestrians to be able to see the vehicles that are coming or not coming, and you want vehicles to be able to see the pedestrians, and you want safe crossing ways. Are you from Muncie? Okay.
From Noblesville, Hamilton County.
Okay, well, the McKinley design is wonderful. Before that went in, students crossed every place, and people would stop every place and pick people up and drop them off. It was scary. I was afraid to drive down McKinley then. But with this new design, students cross where they're supposed to. The planters are up high enough and all. Some people were concerned at first that students might just run through the planters and still they'd cross, but they don't. They cross where they're supposed to, and that has made McKinley much safer. So that's a good example of how things can be done. But these parking lots, the parking lots are in some cases the worst possible scenario, and the layouts in some of them are awkward because they've sort of happened over a period of time. You have cars moving a lot of different directions, and then students walking through and not paying a lot of attention and maybe listening to their music on their headphones so they don't hear the car coming or something. And those are really worst case scenarios, and in some ways it's hard to plan for that.
Do you think, using the McKinley design, do you feel like once, even in a few decades or so, West Ball State expands, do you feel that they're going to copy the McKinley layout and use it for maybe university or Bethel?
They have a plan, not Bethel. I think they intend, I don't know whether they've got money. I think they're hoping to extend it down University, but I'm not sure about that.
And there's been a number of pedestrians and students struck at Ball State Campus, and you said that you tackled the situation by having the McKinley layout. Is there any other way you would improve the safety of students and how they walk throughout campus? Just the fact that there need to be more attentive?
Yeah, they need to be attentive, and they need to think about the fact that there are people in cars. One of the engineers who works at the university is working on a bicycle circulation plan, and he said, you know, one of the things I figured out is that people are going to have to get off their bikes some places. You know, along McKinley, there isn't room in the auto lane to ride your bike. You shouldn't be riding your bike along the sidewalk on McKinley because there are people walking. There are places where they got to get off their bike. Now, we probably need signs to tell them that because they won't all think of that. But I would think that the biggest risk areas for pedestrians are probably in the parking lots and the driveways going into and out of them, where there aren't clearly marked ways for pedestrians. But even if there were, the students wouldn't pay any attention. And, you know, so that's really a worst case scenario, and it's hard to plan for that. The good news about those situations is that the cars are usually moving very slowly, so hopefully there isn't much damage, even if there is an interaction.
And for maybe larger cities, do you think that there's definitely a higher risk? Let's say not even just Ball State campus, but let's even say downtown Muncie. Do you feel like there's even a larger concern in the Muncie area, the downtown?
Now downtown is interesting because on Walnut Street, the narrower street with parking on both sides slows cars down a lot. So the risk there is pretty minimal. As long as people pay attention, the cars aren't moving very fast, they're alert, they should know what's going on. That usually isn't the higher risk area. I mean, if you want to look at a high risk area for pedestrians, look at McGalliard. It's not designed for pedestrians. Cars are moving 35 or 40 miles an hour. You know, Walnut Street, they're probably doing 15. 35 or 40 miles an hour, you cover a lot of feet fast. And, you know, somebody can fall off a curb or step off a curb to try to cross the street. Those are the areas that get really scary. In some ways, things get better in a bigger city because when traffic is so heavy, pedestrians go to the crosswalks, they wait for the traffic lights, they won't dart across the road, they will in a smaller city, the way they will in a smaller city.
That's a good point. Yeah, and except that China and India have like the highest pedestrian risk and injuries, do you think that their planners aren't thinking of the pedestrians, or they're just they're bad drivers, or do you think that they're more risky?
Their roads weren't planned for automobiles. Oh, I'm sorry, we're almost finished. I didn't realize that it was... No, I didn't realize it was reserved. I thought they were just stored here.
Thank you.
China and India. Those roads, they were planned for bicycles and carts and for a few vehicles. Some of them were planned for some vehicles. Most of them predate automobiles. And they've always been crowded with bicycles and pedestrians, and now they're putting more and more cars on them. And there's, you know, the pedestrians have walked down the middle of the street with the horse carts and the bicycles and the motorcycles and everything, and now there are cars driving down the middle of the street. It's a nightmare. I was scared to death when we rode in a taxi in Shanghai. I mean, it was just mind-boggling. And that's a modern part of China where some of the streets are wider, but it scared me to death.
Down the street?
Oh yeah, yeah, but I was very careful. I was very careful.
I'm sure. Well, thank you so much for your
Sure,
time.
well, I
Do you have
hope it
anything
helps.
else to add, or?
No, I'm pleased you're interested in the topic, so and I wish you luck with it.